Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the film.
Thank you.
Maybe you could just start by introducing the film a little bit and explaining why you wanted to tell this particular story.
Oh, that's a question that already requires like a long answer. Basically, I set out to make a film about well, the city I live in, Brussels, is a very complex city, as many contemporary metropoles I think are very complex places where a lot of different people have to live together and find both meaning and a home. And Brussels is a bit extra complicated because we have this the problem of language. Everybody speaks a different language. So already in the very basic communication, the first question always is, do you understand me? And this I found really interesting. Like we all inhabit the same space, but apart from this, what is it that really connects us? What do we share? Like on what level do we connect all? But while writing, a lot of like large geopolitical events started to like literally show up in the streets. We have this whole issue of immigration that like burst loose around 2015. We had our military engagement in Syria, in the Middle East, and in Iraq. And then we had these attacks in Paris, and then afterwards in our own streets in Brussels. And it was such a, to be inside of, I am from Brussels, living there since a long time, and to experience this, I realized like, wow, I cannot make a film that doesn't speak about this reality that I'm living now. And so I found myself constantly like adapting the script to what I was seeing around me. And so in many ways, the film ended up being a portrait of this a bit wounded city in a very specific moment in time where a very tangible, general sadness was present. That was really oppressive. There was so much being put on our city from outside, very brutal things, both this violence, but also the way people spoke about the city, that it really got under our skin. I felt that, and we have been sort of struggling to get out of this heaviness ever since. And I think in many ways we are dealing with it extremely well as a population. But on this larger level, I have the sense that not so much has changed. There is still this enormous lack of dialogue. Oh, there's a long answer just to say what the film is about. But it's a portrait of a very specific moment, and how we as really fragile people have to deal with this enormous complexity of the world we live in. It's a question.
And talk to me about the title. How did you come up with Hellhole?
The title was
it's a strong, bold title.
Yeah. As I just said, like there was a lot projected on the city I live in, and one of the most important people alive today, Donald Trump, spoke about Brussels, and he described it as a hellhole. He literally said, like, it used to be such a beautiful place, and now it's a hellhole. And I don't really think the man had been here in the last 20 years, so I have no idea where he got his information. But this is exactly, was almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. People really not only started to speak about Brussels as a hellhole, I also had the feeling that people started to almost feel it, like, ooh, there must be something wrong, because we're clearly in hell. And so the ridiculousness of these words, but also the brutality of these words, were something that I found myself struggling with. Like, how do I deal with these kind of things, being from Brussels? And so the film, I think, is in a way a nuanced answer to this very brutal word. Like, it's so self-assured, and it's so that for me it's almost a perfect title, because then I get to slowly deconstruct it and to make a film that is I think very fragile, and yeah, that is just also full of doubt. As I am completely full of doubt about, yeah.
And how did you go about choosing your cast and working with these actors to execute your vision?
So Willy Thomas is he's an actor that has worked almost his entire professional career in Brussels, making work about Brussels also. So and I knew him since such a long time, and I've always wanted to work with him because he's just extremely talented. So I knew very early on that I would like to have him as a central character, a character that would take us a bit through different areas in Brussels. I also wanted to have just a young guy born and raised in Brussels, that I think would speak also to many young people in Brussels, that they would connect to. And so yeah, I just literally went out. I had to go out because I knew there were no we don't really have any young actors. They are all amateurs. You have to go look for them and find them. So I did many castings, street castings, and I spoke to many people that profoundly changed the way I feel and think about a city like Brussels. To really stumble upon him and to be like, wow, this guy has balls, because he was completely not intimidated by this idea of being on film. Like, I am sensing the camera all the time, so I'm really like, but he's like, wow. Yeah. And Alba Rohrwacher, who plays the character of Alba, is an actress that, yeah, I mean, she's known in Europe, and I've admired her for quite a while. And then I saw her in her sister's second feature film, Alice Rohrwacher's film, The Wonders, that I appreciated a lot. And because I got to know Alice a bit, I felt it was much more safe for me to contact her, because I could say, like, we don't know each other, but we know each other maybe through Alice. So I felt, otherwise I probably would have been too scared to call. And now I was still probably very weird on the phone, but at least I got to speak to her and ask her a question. Yeah.
And we are living in very politically tumultuous times. What do you think the role of cinema is in perhaps helping us to understand or unpick our current situation, or even perhaps start a conversation or promote change?
I mean, film can be anything, cinema can be anything, but one of the things that I'm looking for the right phrasing, but that I like the most about film, contemporary cinema, is that it's a place of imagination. It's a place where nuance can actually exist, and in the political world, this as whole imagination is absent. There is a strong, I mean, logically understandable longing for security and safety, and maybe even a return to something that was there before. But it almost lacks just a simple imagination to see the reality around us, and then to have the imagination to deal with this complexity. So everything seems to move on an axis that is that I feel somehow is surpassed, and we need to have an entirely different way of looking at the world, because the world is a very different place if all of a sudden we are so conscious of our connection. And then to feel disconnected is strange, and it's disorienting and scary. And for me, a role of film can be exactly that, to just to open this imagination, and to pose this question that I think for me is at the core of every nice film, where I sense that a maker or a group of makers just tell me, like, this is something that we saw, do you see it as well?
Mm.
And in this connecting us, I find very beautiful.
Mm.
And it's a connection through imagination, another connection through fact or fact.
Mm. And what do you hope people will take away from your film specifically?
I think that hope is something that is always buried. It can be buried deeply underneath these dark clouds, but it's always there because we're human beings, and I hope that there is that there is just this very basic connection to the characters on screen as vulnerable people that are like you and me, even though they're very different.
Do you think there needs to be more profile given to Belgian cinema? And how do you see the landscape for you guys in your country?
It's super diverse. The Belgian film landscape is super diverse. There's films like mine that are commercially very fragile, but that I think are at least hope to be and artistically challenging. But we also have an amazing, very commercially produced products, and I just find it really pleasant that there's such a broad scala of films. This pleases me a lot. Like, I also like a lot of different films. So yeah, it's nice to see that the films I make is being supported. It's like that's quite something. If you think about other places in the world where this kind of cinema is just almost impossible to make, or you have to do it with an extremely small budget. No, we get these films funded, and that already is like, it's pretty amazing.
Mm. And can you quickly tell us what you might be doing next? Have you got your eye on the next project?
Yes, I mean, normally I'm extremely slow, and it took me 5 years to come back with a new film. But I'm actually shooting a new film at the end of this month. I have to be on set in 3 weeks' time. I wrote a low budget film. A little bit out of this urge to move fast, and of course money and getting money is often what slows down the whole process of filmmaking. So I wrote a very simple story that I wanted to do with a reduced crew and with the help of a lot of friends. So yeah, this is what I'm doing. I'm filming in 3 weeks. Oh my god.
Panic
attacks. Yeah, small panic attacks. And so yeah, I hope to be back with a new film relatively soon. I don't know when that will be, but who knows, maybe next year.
Okay, great. Well, that's been fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing all that with us, and congratulations on the film.
Enjoy
your time in Berlin.
I will.